can't accept the loss, I'm hard-headed. There's a little bit of madness to my method. Many falling off that fine line that I'm treading. I risk anything to be great, and I'm not letting nobody rob me of my victory. Number one, that's what I'm meant to be. When by any means, only thing that makes sense to me, I can make nice or make history.
What's up, guys? Hope everybody's doing well out there. So we are live here, Retro Live. We've got Joe in the house. And of course, we've got our guest, John Riggs, here. So thank you guys so much for joining us.
What's up, John?
I'm doing well, and I'm glad to be here.
Sweet. Thank you so much. Yeah, I know you're a busy guy. You've been super busy with content recently as well. I've been following you for a number of years, in fact. So super grateful again to, for you to take the time to join us. And I know a lot of the viewers here are also subscribed to you as well. So
we'll put an end to that. We'll see how many unsubscribed.
Hey, that's how it goes sometimes. You never know, right?
I know, that's what I'm looking for.
All right. So we just dive in and welcome everybody. How's everybody doing out there? How is your Tuesday going so far? And you guys can hear us all because we haven't done 3 people in a little while. So I just want to make sure everybody's hearing us.
Oh, no.
That's right.
We had 3-way dance here right quick. Okay.
I know.
What bucket were you in as far as today with the Nintendo Direct? Were you part of the crew that was disappointed, or were you excited?
Myself?
Yeah.
I was excited. I think there's a lot of it's always a variety. I never know what I'm looking for. I'm always listening like, oh, I hope they announce this thing that doesn't exist. I hope they announce this thing that doesn't exist. And it never happens, but then I'm just pleasantly surprised. Right. Like what there is. Like I would have never expected a new Zelda title in the art of Link's Awakening where you play as Zelda. I was like, oh, hey, I didn't even know that was a thing, but I'll take it.
It looks awesome. Yeah.
Things like that too. I was making my friends mad earlier though, because I'm also a huge import gamer. So when I'm watching the Nintendo Direct, they also do the Nintendo Direct in Japan as well on the Japanese YouTube channel.
That's right.
And it's not always the same thing because sometimes they'll showcase imports that may not even come to America. So as I'm watching the Direct, and sometimes the games are mixed around a little bit too. So like the announcement of the Marvel vs. Capcom collection, which I super can't wait for, is one of my favorite announcements.
Same.
They played that earlier in the Japanese one than they did the American one. And I was like freaking out in our little group chat. I was like, oh my God, it's coming. They're like, spoilers. I was like, oh, sorry. I was too busy watching the Japanese one to pay attention to the American one.
I was psyched. There were people that were literally live streaming on YouTube or Twitch for their reactions for whatever reason. And I think Nintendo had a little part in this. They massaged this. There was a rumor, I'm sure you heard, that the Switch 2 is going to be released. And then they tweeted, I sent it to Chase. They actually tweeted like, oh, there's not going to be any mention of a Switch successor. So it got people into a frenzy of excitement. But when you do that, you risk angering the masses as well.
Yeah, and it's like you can't, like, nobody knows that information. And like I literally know people who work at Nintendo. I know one of my friends works in the Treehouse.
Really?
And he's as he says, he's media trained. If there was going to be an announcement about that would have been leaked. No one's going to leak it because they respect. They want to keep their jobs, right? So it's always the people who I think, not tease it, but kind of spin it in such a way. And then when it does get announced, they're like, oh, see, that's me. I was like, yeah, but tell me about the 100 times that you were wrong too. So anybody can say anything. It's like, well, it didn't work this time. I'll mention it on the next one. See what happens.
I'm one of the few, the very few, I should say, that's like hoping against hope that they push this back as much as possible. I still believe, perhaps blindly, that the Switch has at least another solid 2 years in it. But yeah,
long-lasting system. It's been going on. I mean, it's been going on for good Lord. I mean, it seems
like
think about
it. Now. It's 8 years, yeah, and it's already, to your point, creeping up on Wii and the NES, and very now true. You're going to all-time category status. So,
yeah, and it's still the console I play probably the most for video games, and it's still my travel system of choice. Anytime I'm flying, anytime I'm going to a convention, it's what I'm bringing with me on my flight. So. It's doing well.
until the Steam Deck came along, I mean, and Steam Deck is, it's got the people that the emulation people are huge into it, obviously, and that seems to be there does seem to be a significant divide between the Nintendo people and the emulation people, but Steam Deck kind of changed things a little bit, but I don't think anybody's really going to disrupt the Nintendo Switch. It's
your jam, right, Chase? Steam?
What's that?
That's your jam, right? That's your weapon of choice.
Steam Deck, I'm a fan of what it offers, but for me, we talked about kids earlier, the three of us before we went live. My kids, if I'm traveling, I'm putting out fires. I'm trying to juggle everybody, get everybody where they need to go in one piece. I'm not gaming, unfortunately. So if I was, younger or older and, my kids were, past that phase, then I would probably be a Steam Deck guy more so than I am now. But yeah, I mean, I like what it offers. It's just my lifestyle doesn't allow for handheld gaming on the go these days.
Right.
And when I did have a Steam Deck, I ended up using it docked all the time. So I ended up getting rid of it just because it was like, it literally just sat next to my gaming PC. Right. So it's like, it's awesome, but it's not as awesome as my gaming PC. And if I'm going to use it docked, I might as well just use the PC that it's literally sitting on.
Yeah, no,
exactly.
If I'm home, I'm going to do console. Or Absolutely. I'm going to do arcade 1-up. John, please tell me you're an arcade 1-up fan. Don't crush me this early in the interview.
I have one. I have my one arcade 1-up. I have an arcade 1-up. I have an II arcade, and I have the At Games Legends Ultimate.
What is the II arcade? Educate me on this.
It's just recently bankrupt, I believe.
That's what I heard. Yeah,
but it was an arcade. The idea was it was an arcade machine, came pre-equipped with, I believe, 11 games or something like that. Double Dragon being one of them. And then from there, it was a service where it comes with an app. You download the app, and then you can purchase game downloads for $5 or whatever they are. Everything from arcade games to classic console games to Commodore 64 games. There are a couple of those that were on there, and then also new indie titles too. So games that also came out for the Nintendo Switch, for instance, because not iArcade, but like the At Games Legends Ultimate, things like what Arcade 1-Up is doing, which is great. I'm cool with that. It's mostly like these classic retro titles, but it was kind of nice because games that would come out for the Nintendo Switch would also come out on the II Arcade. So some games like what's that jet boat game, like Riptide Renegade or something like that, that was available so I could play that as an arcade game. So I thought it was a really neat idea, but again, kind of went by the wayside and ran its course, I suppose. But yeah, I don't have a whole lot of room for arcades in the first place. So things like that.
We're in the same boat as far as that concerned.
Most people don't have room for arcade games, but
I had it in my children's room, but then they sadly outgrew me, so they basically kicked them out. They curbed them, and I had to scramble for to do something with them. So I put them, long story short, in a storage facility. So I feel you, man.
Yeah, no worries.
But to comment on that, he's not just in a storage facility; he's got them set up in the storage facility.
Okay, well that's
where they're running too. So he's not just storing them; he's going over there and playing them.
No worries. Yeah, I have my I have the Golden Tee arcade 1-Up, and I have that at work. I have that in my work office, and then the other two I have literally right behind me here. So
that's awesome. Yeah, I modded the two that I have. This one, I always do that. I'm always backwards. This guy over here was the NFL Blitz Legacy cabinet, which I turned into an Indiana Jones one.
That's amazing.
And then the WrestleMania one was Mortal Kombat 2. So yeah,
such a great idea.
Yeah, it's awesome that you can play so many games, and it sounds like you were doing that as well with the download options there. But yeah, there's a lot of classic games that have relatively basic controls. I mean, it's everything for like Super Nintendo, obviously NES. When you think about it, and I think a lot of people don't really think about that, you can play all that stuff on arcade.
Yeah.
And I can even play N64 on here. It can be a little bit awkward depending on the game. Right. Like you wouldn't want to play like GoldenEye, on an arcade setup. It just would be totally awkward. But I can play like we're all wrestling fans, I think. NWO Revenge over here. WCW NWO Revenge.
There we go.
You just have to map it. It's a pain to map. But
he didn't give his allegiance. John, you're a wrestling fan?
I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Okay, so you're counting down who killed WCW? You've been counting since 7 a.m. like me?
No, I'm looking for. I'm looking.
That's like no. I'm saying.
Yeah, I love the like Dark Side of the Ring. I love stuff like that. I love the I love what Vice does for their kind of wrestling documentaries, and I think
Dude,
it's really well done.
They're so good. I watch every one twice, and like I
Nice.
tell Chase, like the WWE production is no question head and shoulders above all else. But with Vice and some of these other studios, you don't get the bias. You know, like you really get
Sure.
it's a neutral landscape. Yeah, for sure.
bingo, Chase.
Yeah, if you're gonna watch a WWE documentary on the A&E network, you know it's gonna be padded for WWE to look in their best possible light. So
Yeah, I mean, they've been doing that for years too, with like all the stuff on the network.
The DVD
you know?
documentaries they had.
Yeah,
I like those too. It's fun to see, but there's also, I mean, even in the behind the scenes documentary type stuff, when it's the talking head and they're talking about their past experience, there's still a lot of kayfabe going on there too. We're just like, did that really happen? I mean, come on, we're all grown ups now. It's you know.
Have you seen,
I'm wearing a wrestling shirt right now. I'm an indie wrestling guy. Too,
I didn't know if you were just trying to impress us. I had to really put you to the test.
I've seen his.
He dropped kayfabe, so he's in. Have you seen part 1 and 2, John?
I have. Yeah, I have.
Yeah.
So well, it's nice. Part 1 was free on YouTube, so love that. I don't have access to the Vice network.
They did. The cool thing about Vice is they're usually, I think it's like either 24 hours or 48 hours behind. So they did put the second episode on YouTube as well, but it was a little bit more delayed than that initial one there. So
well, and Vice, and not to spoil anyone else's, however whatever works, is Vice has always been cool about they don't care if people re-upload their stuff on YouTube. So just like the very next day,
cool. You're right.
Yeah, just like I'll end up finding it anyway, and that's. So yeah, it's not the best quality probably, but just to have that on in the background.
It's funny how different networks are. They handle YouTube very differently. And Joe and I were actually talking about this last night because he just did a review video and he had just the tiniest little clip of something that he was demoing, and I was like, I think that one right there is going to give us a problem with YouTube. And as soon as it uploaded, it was like, yep, this segment from this time to this time. So. Yeah, different networks handle that very differently.
And that's pretty cool. And they're not wrong, and it's nothing new. And
no, absolutely
property.
Not.
Just Viacom is notorious for that. Anything MTV, anything Nickelodeon, they're going to tag you for it every single time because it's theirs, or they'll say like, "Hey, you can keep it up, but we'll take all the revenue."
Well, that's the thing, and I know with WWE because I know other people that have done like interviews and stuff with people, and it's funny. I mean, I watch a lot of the WWE or former wrestlers podcasts and stuff, and almost none of them can use clips of themselves in any of their video content, which is unfortunate. WWE won't take it down, but they'll, like you said, happily take all of the revenue from the entire video. So, yeah, it's one of those things. But it's funny that the people that are literally in the segment that they want to show, have no rights to any of the stuff, which I understand, obviously, but it kind of sucks too.
He called it. Yeah, he said they're gonna pull that, and I had another. I thought they were gonna pull. I had some footage on Sonic. I thought Sega was going to have.
Well, don't point it out to them because we'll be
don't say it out loud.
signing off tonight and
good call.
Making it easy for them now.
Yeah. Where was that again? What was the video again? Yeah.
Well, you want to give them the timestamps too?
No, John. Moving along, you seem like you're my age. Were you a Sega guy growing up, or were you a Nintendo-holic?
Well, as the other thing, I'm going to go say one more thing about wrestling. We'll probably come back to wrestling too. Being on the West Coast, there was no not console wars. There was no Monday Night Wars because WCW played live and WWE was tape delayed, even when it was live. So I was able to watch.
True. I didn't think of that.
I watched night, and that was the thing about being on the East Coast or being on the West Coast. In the Seattle area and all that too, or anywhere in California. Just like they would always, WWE. Let's see, I guess it would be Monday Nitro would start at like 5 p.m. or 5:05. And then, right when it ended, you could just flip it over. Then here's, fireworks going off for Raw. So
this is the first that Chase, you're illuminated by this as well. No?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me get this straight. So you could watch wrestling back then for what? 4.5
6
hours, 4.5 hours, 5 hours.
It was about 5 hours
because it was 2 hours and 2 hours, right?
I want to say Nitro was 3 hours, or maybe Nitro was 2 hours, then Raw turned 3 hours. No, Raw was 2 hours.
John is correct.
They had Raw, Monday Night Raw, and then they had like Warzone, or they had that weird like
Nitro
hour
turned into
separation.
3 hours. That's correct.
Yeah. So it was a beautiful Monday night for me each and every Monday. I loved it.
We had to start dragging like 2 TVs, which now is no problem. But back then, I mean, you had the big tube TVs, and you were trying to line those up and have 2 feeds going. And I mean, Joe's older than I am. I was not at a point where I could really make that happen. So
I also knew how to program my VCR, so I could record one and then watch something on another channel. So there was a ways around it. There was.
I never went that far. I just was the commercial surfer, and I was WWE through and through. I mean, I was very into WCW, but I mean New York, and that's why I'm surprised. You know, I don't want to give Chase's government away, but you were in their backyard, and he's a WCW guy. So
yeah, I think everybody at this point knows I'm in Connecticut. So yeah, I'm about barely an hour north of where they were based. Stanford. So yeah, Stanford. Yep, and they just moved.
Maybe that's why you were
too
close.
Yeah, well, I was pretty split, but I think WCW was the big appeal to me as a kid because Hulk Hogan. I mean, Hulk Hogan, he was God to, I would have been 7, 8 years old for the early stuff there.
Sure.
So yeah, that Macho Man, that right there alone would pull me over. So
there you go. No, it worked.
And it was that time where WWE was also a little bit, I don't want to say stale, but I mean there was some questionable stuff at that point in time too. So it just wasn't really gripping the audience the same way. So yeah. So let me ask you about YouTube now, and I'm sure wrestling comes up with us like every 5 minutes over here. It's our biggest thing. So, and we tie stuff into wrestling. We're just
it's all good.
That's just how we're. But when did you start on YouTube? Because I've been watching you for a number of years now. So how far back do you go on here?
Yeah, I was thinking about that too. And I mean, when I first started a YouTube channel, it was purely so I was living out of town when I moved away from my hometown. And when I started having children outside of town, it was my way of, I would upload videos just to send the link to my parents to say, yeah, well, here's this cute thing that my kid did. And thought nothing of it. It's just like, I just used it for a service more than trying to build a channel or anything like that. I did that a couple of times, and it's funny, those videos still exist on my personal channel. But the channel I currently use for video gaming stuff, that I think I started that like November of this year, November of 2014. But again, it was more of a placeholder for other videos, not taking it seriously, not uploading once a week or anything like that. It was just okay, cool. I'm just going to put video game stuff on this channel. And just kind of went from there. And it wasn't until I started getting advice and tips from other YouTubers at conventions and stuff like that, where it's like, oh yeah, I can do that. Yeah, I can do that. And, before I couldn't tell you when I first started doing like at least one video a week type content, but it's probably been a good 7 or 8 years. Seems like.
Yeah, that seems right, because I would say that I've been watching you for probably the longest out of anybody. Not from this channel, but I watch from my personal account typically. But what type of content do you feel is? It's funny. This is kind of a loaded question, because what we as content creators usually isn't lined up with what everybody else that watches our content is most into. But what type of content do you like creating the most?
Yeah, I love doing any kind of video where I talk about a whole bunch of games all at once, just like a listicle of some kind, just because it lets me go back in and kind of replay. I try to capture all my own footage, so it gets me a chance to replay a lot of these older games too, just to kind of remember them and then be like, absolutely. I got, and then you get that bite, you get that bug where it's like, oh yeah, I like this game. I want to play through this game again. That's always kind of fun. So, I mean, anything like that. I mean, really, my favorite type of videos to do are the ones where I'm just at conventions, because I don't even know what I'm looking for. Whatever I can find is whatever I can find. And editing my own videos on those convention videos is terrible, because I'll be so focused on this thing. It's like, oh, look at this thing. This is the coolest thing you ever saw in your life. And when I'm editing the video, I see the other stuff around it, but I'm so busy looking at this one thing that when I'm editing my own video, I was like, I didn't even see that thing over there. And had I saw it, I would have brought it or something.
Yeah,
John, you go into retro world?
I've never been to that one. No,
the Expo in Connecticut. It's
that's the one in
August.
Connecticut. I know the guys who run it very well. In fact, I was just hanging out with Lance at the SoCal Gaming Expo because the guys who run Retro World also run the SoCal Gaming Expo now. I've known those guys for years, but that's out of all the conventions in the United States, that's one I've never been to, believe it or not. So one of these days I'll have to check it out.
Yeah, we're going to be going this year.
Nice.
But I mean, I live like 25 minutes from it, and it seems like
Yeah.
every year I'm out of town when they have it, or I have
Oh.
something else going on. So, yeah, I mean, I've made a point now for like I think I've made sure to keep that weekend clear now for I don't know 8-9 months since they announced the what weekend it was going to be.
Perfect.
So
Nice.
definitely looking forward to that. But yeah, it's sorry, I just get caught up in the comments here. What's going on, Mike and Steve? What's going on? Perfect
Comment
Storm?
away and ask questions away too. I don't know if you have like.
Well, let's get back to Sega or Nintendo. Out with it.
Oh, you're gonna come back to
names. Yeah.
Yeah, I want names. Yeah, it was funny during the console wars. This is my roundabout way of answering the question. During the console wars, I had both. Not just both, but I had the NES, I had a Sega Genesis, and even when it first came out, I had the TurboGrafx 16. So it's like, to me, I had WWE and WCW along with ECW. That's just like I had them all. Not for lack of trying to have them all, but I loved. I want to say I loved them all equally. But I do notice that every time a game came out for all the consoles, I'd always get it for a Nintendo product.
Okay.
And that was my
Nintendo.
detriment.
Yeah.
Because so I have to say, out of all honesty, as much as I love Sega, I truly do. As much as I love, and I mean, I cosplay as Dr. Robotnik. Come on. As much as I love Sega, I think I'm a Nintendo guy for sure. From way back in the day. But man, there's so many.
16. You just brought back some great memories.
Oh God.
Yeah, Bonks,
I don't know what
I was going to say Bonks gets all the credit, but Splatterhouse, oof, what a game.
Yeah, well, I mean, and I got my TurboGrafx 16 before Bonk's Adventure came out, so I had it before kind of the mascot guy. I don't know what I loved about it. It was just a new, unique. Oh, here's a cool thing.
Yeah. It's different. Yeah.
I had a paper route at the time, so I didn't make a lot from my paper route, but it was enough to save up a couple of months. And
the name was really cool too. If you're like a preteen, Turbo, that was an edgy name. It was black. Yeah,
it was just a new, unique, cool thing, and I was like, oh, who knows? And the cards were interchangeable with the handheld thing, which I didn't get the handheld thing till way later. The
Express,
yeah. I have one now, but didn't have one growing up.
Save that. They're a fortune.
Yeah, I even modded mine too, so it has better backlight and better whatever they called you
modded, okay. So you're in the hardware scene? Sweet.
I didn't mod it myself.
Oh,
I modded a mailing address to ship it out to someone else who could take care of it for me.
That's the safer route with something like that, because you have to know what you're doing otherwise.
For a Turbo Express, I mean, if it was if it was a Game Boy, like a Game Boy Advance, I'd be like, you know what, if it breaks, it breaks. I'll get another one. But yeah, TurboGrafx, even like a Turbo Express,
even those are expensive now too, though.
Yeah. They're getting there now. I think people are realizing that. I literally have my SP right here.
Oh my God.
I think people are realizing that. They're really realizing that, man, Game Boy Advance was so great. And even like DS and, like we've had the Switch for the last 8 years, like you're talking about. So we've had 8 years just hyper focus on Switch, but now the nostalgia going back to, how awesome was the 2DS or the 3DS or even just the basic DS too.
Amazing.
Yeah. So it's just, and people, I'm starting to see people bring their DSs back to conventions for street passing all over again. And, they're bringing that back too. So yeah, it's just fun to see for sure.
Oh, cool. I'll bring mine. Thanks for that. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. That'd be cool.
And Steve, we opened with that today, actually. Yeah, we were talking about that a little bit.
What's that?
So I just pulled this comment. The Nintendo Direct,
yeah.
He was slightly disappointed. Yeah, I mean, I think they kind of stirred the pot for, just to get people talking and speculating on all these different things. And, I think the majority of us, unfortunately, do end up getting let down, in that situation. So it's unfortunate in that regard. But I think they had some pretty sweet announcements personally. And
I didn't think we're going to see whatever they call the new Switch. It might not even be called the Switch. I didn't think we would, but I also remember when when the Nintendo Switch was first announced, it wasn't like they would kind of allude to it. Like they would say like, "Oh,
came out of nowhere."
Yeah. And then all of a sudden one day just shadow drop. Here's the trailer. And I have a feeling that whenever the Switch 2 will be announced, it'll just be like, you'll wake up one morning and then that's what everyone's talking about all of a sudden. So, and then me living on the West Coast, you always get it late. So it's like, the direct for me this morning was 7 a.m. Fortunately, I'm up by then anyway, usually. So,
yeah. It's interesting. With us both being on the East Coast, I don't think we considered that, and you opened our eyes to the whole Raw and Nitro thing too, which I never even considered that.
You would never, you'd never think about it. You'd never know, because why wouldn't it? Why wouldn't
he was both? He said, and he was Sega, and then you're a cake and eat it too type guy, John.
Oh, I love
like
cake.
Surf and turf. What's your favorite dish?
Yeah, that's right. I need a little bit of everything. Soup or this. Pour the soup into the salad. That's what I want. I'm just giving all. I want everything.
Hey, don't announce that.
Take the fountain cup.
You stumbled on $1 billion
Coke,
invention.
Diet Coke, root beer, mountain. Yeah, just all a little bit of everything. So, I never want to know about the thing that got away, and I still feel a little bit that way too, where I've gotten to the point where it's like, well, I want that, but I also want that, so I'll just order both at the restaurant and then take home the leftovers. It's
there. You go.
I'm at a point where I don't get nothing, and I just wait for the kids to.
Well, that's the thing with kids. Your kids are a little bit older, though.
It's true.
They're still doing that?
Well, no, not anymore. It's funny you mentioned that. I'm dating myself. That was like 4 or 5 years ago. Now, if I wait for them to leave scraps, my tongue will be out of my mouth. But yeah, once upon a time, you would have your dish. You both know this, and then the kids wouldn't finish theirs.
I'm still in that phase.
It'd be a garbage for them. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what happens? I know that's what I said. It's like, what'd you have for dinner last night? Well, for me, it's always leftovers because I just eat whatever my kids didn't eat. That's good enough for me. So
that's right.
Make sure they're eating first. And yeah, trust me, I can pour a bowl of cereal or something if I need to. I'm good. You
got gamers as for your children? Are they at that age yet?
Yeah, I think kind of now. My children are more. I have 3 kids, and they're all completely different personalities. I like to say it's same ingredients, different cookies. So we have, my oldest is the most of a gamer, but they are hyper Kirby, everything Kirby. They like the other games too. They're a huge fan of Undertale and, like the Five Nights at Freddy's lore and stuff like that too. And then my middle child is a little bit the same way too. Might play a game here and there, maybe more like a, like Dead by Daylight or even a Fortnite every once in a while with friends. Yeah. But honestly, so much of their gaming comes from watching other people play it on YouTube. And then they can tell you everything about the game and the lore and the backstories and what's going on with Five Nights at Freddy's. They had to educate me on what was going on. But then they find out these games like Poppy's Playtime. And it's like, oh, I'll download Poppy's Playtime. It's like $5 or whatever on Steam or whatever. Yeah. So yeah. So
it's funny how YouTube is really taken hold of everything, in that way. You get a lot of passive gamers that are taking that route too, where they're watching the games more than they're actually playing them themselves too, which is something that we didn't have as kids. You didn't have the ability unless you were at a friend's house and they were playing something.
Right.
It's a different world with that now.
Yeah, and maybe that's the way they're doing it because these YouTubers, even like the biggest guys like Markiplier and PewDiePie and them, are the type. It's like, okay, well, he's now my friend, and now I'm watching this game with him, and he's the one playing it, and I'm just giggling along because they're being, because they're. Now, how are they, keeping their audience? But
there's Ninja. What was his name for?
Oh yeah, Fortnite? Ninja for sure. Ninja was he came from. I knew Ninja from Halo first, and then Fortnite blew up because of him. I swear. So we never know. But these things happen. Yeah, so and then my youngest, not so much. It was nice because my youngest, he's the one with autism. He's like nonverbal autism. He can speak. He just won't ask you how your day is, anything like that. But trying to get him to play games. I remember the first time I gave him a controller was for Panic for the Sega CD. So hopefully you know that one because I love that one. It's kind of a hidden gem. So Panic for the Sega CD. It's an interactive cartoon. You don't really die. You just go from room to room or something fun happens. And I was like, okay, well, he's not going to get frustrated or anything like that.
John, that's a perfect game. You should be a spokesperson. I'm sorry to cut you off. That's a perfect game for people to get into gaming. Well done.
Oh my God. Because it's an interactive cartoon. It's going to be something silly. There is, because it came from Japan, there's like full butts and topless, things and whatever. I didn't mind.
It's a learning experience for everybody. Right?
it's a path of self-discovery.
There you go.
But just to kind of put it in perspective too, I handed him the controller and he took the controller and put it on the ground and tried to use it like a mouse. like a Sega Genesis controller. I was like, no. And I kind of like hand over hand. I pushed the arrow down. He saw the arrow move, and I let go, and then stopped moving. And then he was like, "Oh, okay, I get it now." And he didn't actually say that, but he got the controller and learned how to play Panic a little bit. And then from there, the next game he got into was Super Mario Odyssey. Again, a game. Even if you die, you have basically unlimited lives. You just keep going and going and going. And once he learned, I was like, well, you're not going to break the game. You're just going to have fun. Just, so he would start off just by running around, but then he would learn how to jump. And then I don't know what else happened between that day and the next day. But then the next day he was doing like the backflip, triple flips, throw the hat, jump on that. I was like, I don't even know how he's doing this. I mean, this is, and he would never play it to beat the game. He would just kind of fly to a different stage, and he figured out how to do all that. So.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but Panic for the Sega CD is definitely anytime I've ever had someone come up to me, and I've always been really open about like not just having kids on my channel, but also like having my youngest with autism and the struggles of that is. But I've had people reach out to me saying like, well, what are some great games that you think might be okay with someone with autism? Because most people just go straight to Minecraft. Minecraft is great, but I was like, retro games, it's a little bit harder to say one way or another. But Panic
it's
for the
tough,
Sega CD. Even if you don't have a Sega CD, I mean, there's a lot of devices. It was when it comes to emulation, like a Mister or a Raspberry Pi, a lot of devices can emulate Sega CD. Fortunately,
you took the words right out of my mouth. There's a friend in the family that we have, child's on the spectrum, and Minecraft was a game that really that bridged this kid. So I was, and it was an educational process for me too. I had no idea how big that game is. It's the best-selling game of all time. I had no idea.
Right.
It's crazy, yeah. It's
and then you open it up, and it's this sandbox. And my kids tried to get me into it, but I couldn't get into it. They got me into Fortnite, but not Minecraft.
Okay. Fortnite's I give it credit. Fortnite's a great game.
Amazing.
It's just I think it just got too popular too quickly, and then it became one of those like it was cool to hate because it was so popular.
Yeah.
Like, shut up.
Yeah,
it's an excellent game, and
That's
it's free. It's not free in our house because every time there's a new costume pack or something like that, I see my little.
I was going to say, how much money? You said it's free, but how much money do we drop on this?
Oh my God, I've probably
the skins, and the passes, yeah.
Admittedly, I've probably spent in the 5 figures on that game alone. Yeah. Just with how long we've been playing it and how long we got to get everything.
But that's also what I think has really gotten that wide audience too, is that you can get all these skins, and like for me. I was into it early on, and I kind of fell out with it. And then the Indiana Jones skin came, and I'm, as you can tell here, a massive Indiana Jones fan. That sucked me back into it.
I'm looking forward to that one.
Oh, the indie game, yeah.
Oh yeah,
yeah. That's going to be cool. That's going to be really cool. So somebody here, Mark asked, "What are your top 3 favorite games of all time, any system?"
Oh, geez, I know it's
every
time.
One.
That's usually the number one question you get asked at conventions. Like whenever I host a panel, it's like, "What's your favorite game of all time?" And if you ask me tomorrow, it'll change. I mean, like, what's my favorite game now? I mean, if I say of all time, my go-to answer is Zelda 2: The Adventure of Link, just because the first time, and for nostalgia purposes exclusively, I remember the first time I ever played that. And I played The Legend of Zelda before. So I was like, and it was back when Nintendo was just taking risks. And, like going from like Mario 1 to Mario 2 is a huge,
enormous.
It's so different, but it's like, okay, I guess this is the second one. So when Zelda 2 came out, it was like, okay, I guess this is Zelda 2. Nobody questioned it. And I just remember just thinking how epic the world was and how huge it was and what's going on. You can get this item over here and kind of play it your own way in a way. It blew my mind. The first time I ever played that game was Zelda 2. So my go-to answer is Zelda 2. Zelda 2, yeah, The Adventure of Link. But if I had to choose 2 more games for my favorite
games, more, John, yeah.
Woo. One of them is one I would still play today and still do every once in a while, which is Adventure for the Atari 2600. You talk about dating ourselves.
Yeah.
And how many years we got on a lot of the other people. Yeah, because that's what I grew up with was Adventure for the 2600. And again, which is very Zelda-like when you think about it.
It is, yeah.
But I loved the fact that you could do option 1 was to figure it out. Option 2 was the challenge, and then option 3 was randomized.
Random.
So I mean, here's a game that comes pre-equipped with randomized, and then here's all these Twitch streamers playing Legend of Zelda randomizers. It's like, well, it's built in with Adventure.
That's right.
So I would do that a lot. And man, if I have to choose a third one, I mean, I could generically say Tetris because it's whatever. But man, if I had to say, I mean, I don't know. There's always and I don't want to do any like honorable mention or here's, I can't just pick one. I got to choose a bunch. But if I had to choose one,
it's tough. It's tough to.
Oh, you know what? Just by nature of the game I put in the most time, the game that I played the most when it first came out, the game that I put in more hours than any other game to this day, more than Skyrim, more than Oblivion, more than anything else, is Fire Pro Wrestling S 6-Man Scramble on the Sega Saturn.
Wow!
Just because I was a huge wrestling fan, and then when I discovered the Fire Pro Wrestling games, I was like, oh my god, this is exactly the wrestling game I'm looking for. Because wrestling games before that were kind of still figuring it out, where it's like they were. You swear that a room of people who knew nothing about wrestling was the company saying, "Hey, we need a wrestling game. Have at it." And so you get kind of wrestling games, but not really.
Well, WrestleFest figured it out.
Oh my god, WrestleFest was wonderful. I mean, but
amazing.
WrestleFest was also a quarter buncher. I mean, it was an arcade. I mean, Technos. Yeah. So of course it's going to be a great game. And even Wrestling Superstars was a good game too.
Great game.
And some of those other Japanese wrestling games, like Matt Mania, was okay. I mean, there's a couple of them. Some of those classic arcade.
No, but you're right. I know what you mean. They never got the grappling system, and it was just really a fight him. Kick them up.
Yeah, it was around that time when the Aki engine came out, especially for like for virtual pro wrestling, or even like WCW versus the World, which I imported as a virtual pro wrestling for the PlayStation 1. And then when WCW versus the World came out, I was like, oh, perfect. This is the same thing. And then from there, it's like, it you shouldn't have to learn. It shouldn't be Mortal Kombat, but with wrestling, like having like up down up, circle shouldn't be a hip toss. It's like no, you should be able to pick it up and play it. But
Chase, is this also a brain teaser for you?
What do you mean?
In other words, this question, it's easy for me. It's Mario, Link to the Past, and Super Metroid. But I'm not mocking John. This is like if you ask people this, it does become this exercise of
You know what? I think it's I think it's he hit on this. Different days, it's different things for me, and it's the same thing. Like when we talk about wrestling all the time, and we talk about our Mount Rushmore. That is a little bit more stable for me, but it does vary too, day by day, and mood and whatever I happen to be kind of absorbing at that time too.
So full moon or not, I hear you.
Yeah, there you go, exactly. So yeah, I can see both sides of it. For me, it's Gauntlet Legends hands down. It's just I don't know, it's something about that game. I think more so than the game itself, it's the memories I have in the arcade playing it. Sure. And all that kind of
stories like this.
Yeah, all that just kind of goes together.
That's why beyond GoldenEye.
Yeah.
GoldenEye is not a great game. Don't get it twisted. But the memories of friends hanging around, drinking Mountain Dew till the sun comes up, playing GoldenEye. That's the fun. That's the
John, we can't be friends anymore now. It's over, man. It's over. This is blasphemy. You're doing sacrilege on the show. GoldenEye's not a good game. Blasphemy.
I prefer Perfect Dark, but.
I'm weird in that, and actually I think that Joe and I disagree on very few things, but I think we actually had a disagreement on 007 games. I like The World Is Not Enough. That's my go-to game, and I know that I have that in common with almost nobody, but that's my favorite game over GoldenEye. Although the multiplayer for GoldenEye is just absolutely incredible, and I think that's something that's really special about that title was, the multiplayer for that time period is just insane.
A lot of us console gamers, that was our introduction to multiplayer.
Yes.
Because before that, I mean, I had friends who would play Doom online. I had friends who would play Duke Nukem, like the Battle Arena, whatever those things are called, through their LAN cables, and they use a dial-up phone to call their other computer and stuff like that. They could do all that. I didn't have a computer to do that. I'm a console gamer. I still am. So for me, GoldenEye was that first kind of four-player battle idea.
Put a lot of players' foot in the water, for sure.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, a lot of great memories with all the above. And then that's the same for me in 6-Man Scramble, was just staying up all night. And, you couldn't just download wrestlers. You had to create them from scratch. So we would create all the wrestlers and make up our own characters. And we spent way more time creating, just like with any game, we spent way more time creating wrestlers and actually playing the game. It's like back when we were kids playing Transformers, you would spend way more time choosing which Transformers you were going to be than actually playing Transformers. Okay, I'm done. Let's go inside and get a popsicle.
That's me trying to pick a movie to watch with my wife. I spend. She'll say, "Well, we're going to watch it in an hour, so you better start trying to pick out what we're going to watch now."
That's
Because
right.
I'll go through Netflix, I'll go through Peacock, I'll go through
Yep.
Apple TV, whatever, and
Sure.
by the time I find something I'm interested in, it's time to go to bed. So I can relate to that on so many
That's right.
levels.
No,
And this is a great comment from Orlando here. SmackDown, Here Comes the Pain. That's probably up there. I don't know. I would say that's one of my favorite console wrestling games
yeah.
because WrestleFest is something that I absolutely love for wrestling. I'd probably put that at the top for myself. But
Right.
Here Comes the Pain's a good one. I like all the SmackDown games though for
Oh, they're
PlayStation
so
1 and
good.
2.
They were
Amazing.
so good, all of them. Yeah, I just loved the. I mean, again, same with the simple play controls. You can play as anyone, but then, I mean, even just like certain moves would set up other moves and all that. Or one of those was it Here Comes the Pain, or maybe it was the other one where you could actually you could create your own finisher and do the most weirdest. I mean, that
It was
fun.
one of them. I don't remember if it was it that one or was it?
It was pretty
It was
wonky, but I
one.
thought it was.
Yeah.
I thought it was funny.
It's one of those things, when they're making advancements that they're not super smooth, but
Right.
it's cool to have something unique about them because especially in this day and age, we see so many games that are basically just the same thing over and over again.
Yep.
And
Cookie cutter games. Yep.
yeah,
Yep.
exactly. And from Derek A here, Mount Rushmore of game franchises. Wow, that's another. We're doing some deep dives
IPs.
tonight.
That's a great question. Nice,
Yeah.
Derek.
That
Gotta
is a great question.
Got to choose any four, huh? Should we go around the bend and choose one each until we get all four? Or, I don't know.
Well, we might have to.
I don't know.
You know what?
I mean, I was just talking about it. The first one that comes to my mind is the Fire Pro Wrestling series. I every single time a new Fire Pro game came out, I had to grab it. And I still play the one on Game Boy Advance of all things, just because it's convenient. But man, I'm a huge fan of the Fire Pro series.
That's a good one. Mount Rushmore game franchises. I'm going to go with the safe one here, Halo.
Okay.
That's one of those games. I got into that first one, and for me, Combat Evolved was just absolutely phenomenal in every possible way. And I thought that Halo 2 was great, and then they started to go downhill a little bit, but even the latest release, I mean, I can get into it. It's I know it didn't do as well. There's a lot of people that didn't like it, but they made some advancements along the way, and it's definitely fun to play. So I don't overanalyze things. So I'm going to go with Halo for Mount Rushmore of game franchises.
Yeah, that's safe.
Yeah. How about you, Joe? What do you think?
You're all crazy. It's Mario, Sonic, Metroid, and Zelda. That's it.
No, you're got involved here.
We'll talk about going safe. I mean,
But you said I'm not going to overcomplicate things. I mean, it's
Well,
true. It's
Metroid
true.
might be a little bit out there because there's a ton of Mario games, there's a ton of Zelda games, there's a ton of whatever the other one you said was Sonic, yeah, whatever. There's only like a handful of Metroid. I say a handful. There's like 10 Metroid games or something, probably more than that, but not nearly as many as there are Sonic games. So it's cool to have Metroid up there, and Metroid Prime 4. Finally, looking forward to it.
the Hunter series, and then they veered off to the pinball and the DS. No.
Oh, that's right.
Any cash cow, and that's again, it could be the boring cliche answer to say that the Beatles are the best band or Coke is the best cola, but if it is what it is.
If it works, it works.
That's right.
It's number one for a reason.
for sure. And 007 games, I love James Bond. I don't know. I feel like I always pick the weird ones, but From Russia with Love, probably my favorite because
Interesting.
Sean Connery. I mean, how can you go wrong with Sean Connery? And I like the movie too, so I don't know, it worked out with that one. I actually got into that through PSP, which I think it's one of the only games that I really remember playing with PSP. But
There you go.
yeah, 007 is pretty fun.
I admittedly haven't played a whole lot of the James Bond games outside of GoldenEye.
Really?
I know plenty of them exist. I played the Game Boy one for a little bit, but that's completely separate. And there's well, I mean, it's not a James Bond game, but there is a game called I Expect You to Die which is a VR game, which you're stuck every VR episode of this game is like you're stuck somewhere in a chair and you have to use whatever you have around you to solve the puzzle so you can get up and leave or move on to the next thing before the timer goes off or before the laser gets here or something like that. So it's not.
What is it called, John? I never heard of this game.
Oh, I Expect You to Die.
I expect
It might
you
be
to
called
die.
something. I may be well, and also of course with the famous quote.
That's the playoff when he's
Right.
in the laser chair. Yeah.
I think it's called that. Hold on, let me double check. Yeah, it's called I Expect You to Die.
Okay.
I have it
just
on.
wrote it down. Yeah,
have
I'm
it on-
always game for a new one.
I have it on my Quest. I'm a huge VR gamer too. That's funny because I don't play a whole lot of today's AAA games, not a lot of them, but I love my retro games, and I love VR gaming. So there's not a whole lot in between.
Yeah.
I got a Quest. I saw the new VR that Apple's putting out. I mean, it's
I
a
didn't grab one
fortune,
of those.
but I'm sorry.
I said I didn't grab one of those. I mean, just the price point alone, and
It's insane.
They're really trying to push it more for like business marketing, and it's like I just want to play video games.
Yes.
You know, I don't care that I can categorize my spreadsheet. I'm
You're
not going
right.
to do all that.
Keep it simple, John. I agree.
Yeah, there you go. I just want to look like an idiot, to my kids when they're getting up in the middle of the night, and here I am, just like where I think I'm dancing because I'm playing Beat Saber, but no, I look like I stubbed my toe or something.
We've all been there with that one.
Yeah, I'm dancing. No, I'm not.
Great comment from Jimmy Crane here, 1986. Hey guys, I always love the content. You mentioned WWF No Mercy the other day. Checked out No Mercy plus V2 by Retro Randy. 100%. Do it if you haven't. Have you checked this out? I haven't checked that. I've checked out the videos on it. I haven't checked it out, for myself yet.
What is this? What are you talking about?
I haven't played it yet, but I'm down. I'm so behind on so many of those mods now. It's rough.
Yeah,
but, yeah.
There's so many that I want to check out. Like I checked out the. God, it's one of my better videos too, and I'm blanking on the name, but it's a No Mercy hack or mod or whatever. Mm-hmm. But with all, and I think you get like 30 different versions of like each wrestler too, and they're constantly updating
write this
it.
one too. Yeah.
Well, I don't remember the name, but it's on the channel here. I covered it, and I'm forgetting the name of the damn thing.
Plus
but
V2.
they're tough to get into because there's a lot of moving parts to jumping in. It's not as simple as just popping in a disc or double clicking on on a game. The initial setup is a little bit of a tedious process, and there's always strange workarounds that you have to deal with as well. So that kind of deters me from diving into that stuff more regularly. But time's never on my side, unfortunately.
I hear you.
But yeah, it's cool to be able to play those games where you have different options and stuff where you're combining. Like for me, I loved Legends of Wrestling, those games. And now looking back, they weren't great. But back then you could be ECW, NWA wrestlers, WCW, WWE, WWF, all in one game. And back then that wasn't possible. That we had to kind of go one way or another.
The crossovers are always they're fun.
Yeah, and now we have that with the new WWE games and stuff. But we at that time that was unheard of for us.
John, are you a comic guy?
Not so much anymore. And I wasn't even back then, so I don't know why I said that. I read a little bit of Spider-Man. I read a little bit of X-Men, like in the early '90s. I have friends who are definitely comic people, but I never got into it. Reading? What? Where do I plug that in? There's no soundtrack? Come on. I gotta have.
I liked comic books.
I get it. I never got into it.
Yeah, I liked comic books, but I wasn't into like Marvel or DC. I was into like movie comic books and like Star Wars comic books, stuff like that.
That's cool.
But yeah, I don't know. I always have to just go against the grain, I think.
More than anything, like if I go to like a Comic-Con or something where there's somebody's selling his own illustrated thing that he made himself, then I'll buy those and check them out. But anymore, I don't follow any of the new stories or anything like that.
Retro Rob in the house. What's going on?
Oh, my buddy Retro Rob. We love our Retro Rob.
What is this? I heard Riggs smells like CTC and Robotnik.
Robotnik.
Gotcha.
True story. Yep, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is what CTC is, by the way. So.
Well, come on, let's hear it. What's a true story?
My story?
That he smells like
that is a true story. Yeah, I do smell like Cinnamon Toast Crunch.
Oh, okay, I understand. I see. Yeah.
And whatever Robotnik smells like, Motor Oil, I guess. I don't know.
Physical and digital comic books. Are digital comic books a thing? I didn't even know that.
They are. Oh yeah. Well, I mean, because you can download them on your Kindle or your iPad or whatever. So. Just kind of flips it.
I'm so out of the loop with that. I didn't even realize that was a thing. But I mean, it makes perfect sense that it would be.
Yeah.
I don't know. Now I'm starting to feel old like you guys.
Another,
It's funny, you
another
guys, to make you guys feel older, not to be an asshole, but
no,
you
that's
guys were
okay.
talking about
No,
playing
we don't get it.
Adventure before. You know, when I played Adventure for the first time, after I saw Ready Player One was the first time that I
Oh,
played Adventure for
Oh, this
Atari.
is great. I love this story. Yeah.
But
yeah.
it, but
I
it's,
love that
but
they
it
highlighted
Real
that.
was,
game.
Yeah.
yeah,
And it really
it
was
was
an Easter
cool.
egg. You
It
can really
was, yeah. That's why there's so many people don't like that movie. I never understood it because there's just so many
it's different
amazing
from the
components to that.
it's different from the book.
It is, yeah, absolutely,
So
absolutely. But I don't know. I love when you have that many Easter eggs and that many pop
mm,
culture references. Plus, the
yeah,
soundtrack on there is pretty phenomenal. Just a
yeah.
lot of really cool
Um,
things all
that was
balled
kind
up
of the
into
whole thing
one.
was like the entire the entire movie and the book. I mean, especially the book. Oh my god! But the entire, I mean, that's all it is. It's just cameos and Easter eggs and all that to keep going. Oh,
Yeah,
I remember that. It's almost like nostalgia overload.
it
Too many things happening.
very much is. Yeah, and I think they're doing a sequel to that too because there's the two
The
books as
yeah,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I I wouldn't doubt it.
yeah,
I'm not as familiar with the second one, so but check it out. It
Yeah, I
comes that
loved
time.
it that they cited that and referenced that moment in the movie. It was awesome.
Yeah, well, because the other ones weren't. Because the other ones were also games, but yeah, they're not. Ain't nobody remembers Black Tiger by Capcom in the arcade, so you know, I do because it was one of my favorites. But it's like, okay, I was pretty sure they were going to have Black Tiger all of a sudden. Although I wish they would have, because then maybe would have got a sequel to the franchise or something. But it is available on your Capcom Arcade Classics on the PlayStation 2. I think it's on Xbox 360. I have it on my PSP, but I do love Black Tiger. Anyway, enough of that nonsense.
there we go.
That's right, Ready Player 2.
So that's the
Ready Player
sequels.
2.
Yeah,
That'll
that's
be
the
the
sequel.
sequel. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. Retro Rob, we will reach out to Retro Rob. I saw a few people mention that, so we will make sure that we do that.
Oh, as you should. Yeah, his channel is growing.
Yeah, I'm
nicely.
familiar
I mean,
with his channel for sure.
oh,
Yeah,
perfect. Yeah, you
yeah.
have to ask about his favorite.
It's funny how I try to reach out to a lot of people, and that's one thing I've been trying to focus on lately because it's funny how, and I've talked about this with other people that have been on here, how I don't know, it feels like high school sometimes with YouTube. It's very clicky at times. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I try to be open to everybody.
Yeah, well, and it's hard to. I mean, not everyone checks their own. Not everyone checks their email, and then sometimes, depending on the channel size, they may not even be checking their own email. They may have
It's
like their
true,
agent
yeah,
or manager
yeah.
or
Or
something.
you're
checking
just
their email, but
like, I mean, I have trouble keeping up with emails too sometimes. So there's a lot that can kind of fall through the cracks. Like
oh, yeah.
I've now very recently gotten conditioned to like checking the spam folder like every day because so many things. And it's funny
Oh,
how sometimes even just responses, like you'll have a conversation back and forth, a couple different email exchanges, and somehow it still gets pulled into spam every
oh, yeah.
now and then. So
Yeah, all it takes is just attaching a document file or something, or yeah, it could be anything. It's
yeah,
rough.
exactly. And I do a lot of giveaways on here. So now I'm trying to figure out like ways to kind of put in the subject, like make random references because if you say like contest winner, right to spam every
Oh,
time.
yeah,
So
right.
yeah, it's funny how you have to kind of think of things like that to get around.
Yeah,
John, do you know Retro Rob?
I do. Yeah, Retro Rob and I, we went to the Midwest Gaming Classic together, which is my favorite video game expo in the United States. So we hung out there all weekend, and yeah, just
Nice.
another content creator and cool dude all around. And
Awesome.
you know,
Well, that's
had
a ringing endorsement.
yeah, had a bit of a following on Facebook of all things, but Facebook hates him, so he just started moving his content over to YouTube. I was like, well, you should have done that first, but okay, you know. But he's coming along just fine. So
Awesome. Awesome.
yeah,
I was going to ask you, you kind of jumped into that. You go to a lot of conventions, and
sure,
that's one thing that I'm trying to get into going to more because I've been to conventions, but I haven't been to like specifically gaming conventions. Like I've
right.
been to some that have gaming, kind of mixed in, but
Oh, sure.
nothing that's specific to just gaming. What are some of your favorites? And also, how many do you go to a year? Because I've followed, I don't know how many videos I've watched, but a lot of your videos where you're at different ones and you're kind of
Right.
taking everybody around with you, which I love. Most recently, the one in California.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
watched that whole thing, and interesting enough, watching you go through the VHS tapes was my favorite part of that video as well.
Yeah, anymore. I have, especially with my age, my advanced age, being in my 40s. I have a literal lifetime supply of video games. I don't need any more games.
Yeah.
But now what am I collecting for? What am I looking for? So it's like, well, I'm a huge, again, along with wrestling, along with anime, along with wrestling and video games and breakfast cereal. I'm a huge retro anime fan too. So it's like, the tapes that I grew up with, the tapes I would rent at the video store or something like that. So whenever I find a stack of VHS tapes, I always kind of dig through them and maybe come back with something anyway.
Yeah.
But no, Midwest Gaming Classic, which is in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, is my favorite one. And that's no offense to any of the other ones. It just, by what it is, how big it is, one room full of vendors, and then another room is just full of like all these arcades and pinball machines, all at free play. They have live wrestling there. A lot of video game conventions will just have a wrestling ring right in the middle of the showroom floor. So I love that. Haven't jumped in the ring yet once, but give me time.
Hey, one day.
One day for sure. Well, they'll bring in the local federation to set it up, so it's not like they set it up and they're going to pick people out of There's nothing like that. They have their own thing going on. They're just there. But no, and it's in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, downtown. I'm a huge craft beer fan as well, so plenty of options for Midwest Gaming Classic. But I'm from the Northwest, and the Portland Retro Gaming Expo has been heralded as the best by many, and hard to see why not, because it's also just like Midwest Gaming Classic, just huge, bunch of vendors. Got the panels from whoever you want to meet or whatever. All the arcades. They always bring in a great art, like a museum part of the show too, where they'll have somebody bring in every Nintendo game, so you can look at a wall at a glance and see here is the entire U.S. Nintendo.
John, I'm going to this.
Yeah, wow. It was Nintendo one year, it was Super Nintendo another year. But that's perfect for you, Joe. They actually had Sega Genesis. So I was like, here's every Sega Genesis game all at once, all of them boxed. It's all right in front of you.
How did you know I was a Sega guy? You did
because you started your questioning with a loaded question. You're trying to find out. Trust me, come on now. Smell our own here. Last year was kind of nice because it was like in celebration of Atari, so they had like all the Atari Jaguar set up there, like the Atari Jaguar, and then even like the dental lab unit where the Atari Jaguar shell was turned into and stuff like that too. So
can I just say, is this the year? That Atari's coming back? Am I the only gamer that senses that? I'm not wrong, right, John? You feel it.
No, of course. And, and Atari has a new marketing team and they're doing good things.
I love what they're doing.
They brought out the 400 Mini, which was a computer system I wasn't aware of, but I'll grab one.
I have it. Bro, I did an unboxing on that on my channel and it bombed.
Yeah, same.
And I talked to like 6 people. They're like, Joe, it's Atari. That's a fogarty word. It's like, I wanted to scream. Like, what do you mean it's a fogarty word?
I think I might have been one of those people. Was I, Joe?
Probably, yeah. You were one of those people.
I wasn't agree. It's not necessarily my opinion as much as I just think that's unfortunately how a lot of people view it.
Does that happen? Does anyone ever say like, no, I don't want to hear Mozart. I don't want to watch Godfather. It's ridiculous.
It is.
So
I agree.
Does nobody say like, I'm not going to read Death of a Salesman? There's no other medium or form of art where that. And I'm yelling now. I'm sorry, but they're because your
New Jersey is showing.
John, yeah. No, I'll dial it back. I'm right. Back on point. Like this is the year they're coming back, right? You feel it.
They're doing good things. I love the fact that they brought back the Atari 2600 console with HDMI that plays classic Atari games. And there's a lot of great conventions that bring Atari games that people are selling for dirt cheap. And I love Atari for they know their legacy, and it seems like they know their legacy, but they also know their place. Now you can't do this with Nintendo because Nintendo will only do it on a Nintendo system and a Nintendo console Nintendo's way. It goes back to what we were talking about with WWE documentaries on A&E. They're going to pad it to make them look like they're in the best light. Atari is Atari. And so you can get the Atari 50 collection. Here's the 50 best games with the behind the scenes and what happened and all the people smoking pot in the break room and Atari. Legendary stories. Amazing. And they're releasing this on Switch. They're releasing this on PlayStation. They're releasing this on Xbox. They're releasing it everywhere because that's part of the history of it all. And Atari is doing that when other companies can't. And I love it.
I love it too. I think that's awesome.
It was Chase
awesome
that was one of the 6 people that's told me that. Now I remember. Yeah, it was him.
I thought we got past that.
Yeah.
Oh my
Well,
goodness.
I mean, that's it's unfortunate. You got to remember how many young people there are on YouTube as well, and that all factors into the algorithms and all the bullshit behind the scenes sometimes. So, I wasn't saying that I don't like Atari. I mean, I'm a big
Yeah,
Atari fan, but I just think that you have a lot of young gamers out there that are kind of
sure. Well,
dictating the
and
popularity out here,
if
and
you didn't grow up with it, and I have friends of mine who are slightly younger than I am who didn't grow up with it, so they have no love for it. So they'll look at an Atari game, like if you just look at it just by the graphics, not the box art. Atari box art, some of the best box art.
That's a great
in
point,
life.
John. Yeah, great.
But they'll see a screenshot, or they'll even see maybe a bit of gameplay footage, and they're like, "That's it." I was like, "Well, yeah. I mean, it came from the arcade age where everything's a quarter muncher, so you get your 3 lives. You have to shoot the aliens, whatever whatever the copy is,
yeah.
and
Well,
and that's
it's
that.
one of
And
those
then once you
things
play
where
it,
like, no, not to cut you off. No, go ahead.
no, just that.
Oh, well, yeah, it's one of those things like if you try to get your kids to play it, they're not, they'll look
No.
at it and oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
You want to play it? No. It's one of those situations. Whereas I think with like Nintendo 64, there's a few games in there that are timeless that the kids will play today and have a good time with. But Atari is one of those things where it's kind of stuck in its time period with the audience
is.
that it collected back then.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
it's
man,
tough.
they're trying to break through by re-releasing classic Atari games as the newer games too. So that's when you'll see
Yeah.
like Yar's Revenge remastered, or you'll
Yeah.
see the new Tempest or whatever they're
Tempest,
coming out with,
yeah.
and it's like it's okay just to have the classics. It's okay, like you don't have to. Thanks. I mean, like the new Haunted House, I thought was a fun idea, but I'd rather just play Haunted House on the 2600.
Right.
And then something about going into at least like the 8-bit, 16-bit age, I think that still holds up today. And that's not just me being, speaking from a nostalgia point of view,
Oh,
but
for
like
sure,
again,
for
with my
sure.
kids growing up, I have 3 children. My youngest is 16, my oldest is 19. So that kind of gives you an age range. But when I was playing video games, to my kids, there was no retro gaming. It was all video games because they would go from playing The Legend of Zelda to playing Breath of the Wild, and it's no big deal. And if you look at my Switch catalog right now, all my newest games on the Switch all look like old Nintendo games anyway. So it doesn't matter. We're all, it's all full circle. It's all what we're doing now.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Let me see. I'm going to dive into these comments here. I've been neglecting these guys a little bit.
Taylor
here.
Hammer pork roll. There's one for Joe. There's a right answer, by the way.
It's Taylor Ham. Taylor Ham is the right answer, John. Right, John?
It is. Taylor Ham is the right answer.
Okay.
And I'll just
Sure,
to
why
the live chat here. If anybody asked questions
Pork
before
roll.
when we were pork roll, there you go.
Yeah.
If anybody
Go
asked
for it.
questions, I know there were a bunch of questions that we kind of skipped over because I was getting behind on things.
Oh yeah, if
but
you ask a question we didn't answer it,
shoot
Video
us
game related.
shoot us another question or
Video game,
wrestling
breakfast
related as
cereal.
well. And
yeah.
RC from NYC, thank you so much for the support.
I'll look at
Greetings, everyone. Hope all is well and safe. Awesome. Proud Atari, baby. There you go.
Yeah, I mean, that's
Years
what
of
was
entertainment.
Yeah.
I grew up with Atari. I mean, that was, I remember when my dad literally went to the store to come back with an Atari. So the Atari was already out for a while.
John,
but,
same memories, man. Yeah.
Yep. So there was just, I grew up with Atari, but I did that too in the arcades, of course, at the time. But it wasn't until the NES came out where I was like, okay, this is now my new favorite thing to do in the world. Before that, it was just it's like, oh, you want to play Atari? You want to play Monopoly? It's just a thing, It was another accessory, just like the VCR. But yeah, once the NES came out, I was like, nope, this is all I want to do now. And I never stopped.
I took
Best
the Master
cereal
System. Yeah.
from Koopa Kid 80. Best
I
cereal.
love Koopa Kid. Yeah, my buddy Koopa Kid's also from New Jersey, so there you go.
Nice.
We need a Lyndhurst Bakery breakfast cereal. That's what we need. We need a New Jersey rainbow cookies cereal. Can we do that? It just kind of have that almond and chocolate flavoring to it. Man, that'd be great.
That would
yeah,
be good.
my
It would
favorite
smell great too.
Oh yes, it would. My favorite breakfast cereal of all time was one called ice cream cones cereal, because it looked like literal ice cream cones. It was like they had the little puff balls, and it also had little kind of like golden graham cones, so you could actually make them into little ice cream cones. Thinking back, for some reason I just loved that cereal. And anytime someone says, "Oh, what cereal would you like to bring back?" As much as I love ice cream cone cereal, they did try to bring it back like in the early 2000s, and it wasn't the same. So I was like,
Really?
I don't.
So when was this initially released?
It would have been late, probably 86, 87, somewhere in there. So
Okay.
Ice cream cereal.
it was
Cereal.
called Ice Cream Cones. Yeah, Ice Cream Cone cereal.
I'm gonna look
And they
that
had
up.
a cartoon mascot of Ice Cream Jones was the ice cream man, and he would deliver
Cocoa
cereal.
Puffs, Koopa Kid, Cocoa
You
Puffs are my favorite.
Can't go wrong with Cocoa Puffs. I mean, and some of the, and that's what people say too, because again, I have a huge, not a huge cereal collection, but I have a bunch of cereal boxes. You know, I wrote the book on breakfast cereal that I did a while back. But they're like, oh, you must eat a lot of cereal. It's like funny, I never eat it for breakfast. And the breakfast cereal, and the cereal I do eat when I do eat cereal, which is usually late at night, I just edited a video. I'm going to watch it through myself, or I'll probably enjoy a bowl of whatever tonight during what killed WCW or who killed WCW. But it's always the classics. It's always still the Frosted Mini Wheats, the Frosted Flakes, the Apple Jacks. You know,
Frosted Flakes. Yeah, that's my go-to as well.
Yeah.
Same with
It's
Vito
perfect.
here.
What is with the cereal? Is this like the cheesecake thing that Chase has? There's some sort of double
Is
on
there a cereal?
No, it's just I am as nostalgic for breakfast cereal as I am video games. It was the thing I grew
I'm
up
saying
with.
this is your shtick though, like cereal, like
It is, yeah.
I know that about you. Okay.
They do, yeah. So people who are familiar with me, I used to review new cereal on my channel when I was still like, well, I mean, I'll talk about cereal and video games and whatever and wrestling. When I did, I was just like, I'll just post whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like I just love it.
Let me ask you this: as far as YouTube and stuff nowadays, do you try to stay within your niche or on topic, or do you just still do whatever you want to do? Because it seems like YouTube does kind of want you to, more or less, sometimes it feels like, for me anyways, fire up the same thing over and over again. Yeah.
And you have to with YouTube anymore, because that's how the algorithm works, and the algorithm's not a bad thing. This is now we're talking YouTube strategy.
No, please talk about the YouTube algorithm.
So the idea is to make it work to your advantage, because you want somebody to watch your video. Maybe they're watching this video right now, the people in the chat, and thank you for it. We love you for it. Here's hoping that tomorrow morning, when they open up YouTube for the first time, on that homepage, they'll see the interview you did with Buff Bagwell, or they'll see the interview you did with Wrestling with Gaming. Now, you did this a while back, but because they watched this video and maybe they watched it long enough, watch time is everything. That's what you want. And you don't want to lose that feature to have, it's something like 75% of views from YouTube come from people clicking on videos from the homepage.
Yeah.
So it's such valuable real estate to be up there. Now, if I did, I'll do like, here's a bunch of Nintendo games that came out in 1988. Perfect. Get some views on that. The very next day, video pops up on their homepage. Here are the Sega Genesis games that Joe loves. Perfect. And then I'll have you on whatever. That's that. And we can actually work on that video later if you want. Perfect. Now, let's say the third time comes around, and then the first video they see is, here are the 5 breakfast cereals that needs to come back. And they're like, why do I care? And they won't click on it.
Yep.
Now, the next day, let's say I do another video that says, here are 10 great Super Nintendo games from Japan that you don't need to know Japanese to play. Great video. But it won't show up on their homepage because they didn't click on my cereal video. So there's some things like that. It's like, as much as you want to do that, you just kind of have to stay in your own lane.
Yep.
So, I mean, and I have a great YouTube friend of mine who has an awesome VR channel, and all he talks about is VR, but he loves retro gaming and can't talk about it. So he talks about it with me whenever I see him, but he can't share it on his channel because
give him a plug. Who is he?
Oh, it's his name's Gamertag VR. Gamertag VR. He's a great YouTube channel, talks all about VR gaming and everything. He will do videos now. He'll do videos on he'll hack The Legend of Zelda so it plays in VR. He did one recently where he
ties in, so you can kind of combine both worlds.
So he can have a little bit of that story too. But when I started doing videos on breakfast cereal, when I started doing videos on wrestling, as much as I'd love to do, like I'm currently training to be a wrestler. I'd love to do more of those videos too, but it would be better to just put them on a separate channel, or maybe even maybe a YouTube short. But then even if people watch the YouTube short, they might be like, oh no, I thought you were wrestling. Why are you talking about video games? Although like every wrestler loves video games apparently.
Speak on this a little bit. You're training to be a professional wrestler?
I am, yeah.
And where are you going specifically?
It's Relentless Athletics, which is in Spokane, Washington.
Okay.
That's awesome.
It came about in a very, I didn't realize I could do that way, because also understanding my age, I'm in my 40s. And it's one of the local wrestling federations, which I love. So we would go there. Spokane, Washington is about a 3-hour drive from where I live. It's on the east side near Idaho. But we happened to be there one time. There's an indie wrestler named Warhorse, who I'm kind of buddies with. So he happened to be wrestling there that day. So we went over there, watched the thing, got to know the promoter and the booker and one of the wrestlers there. He kind of does everything. And then that was that. And then the next time I saw him, he was like, "Hey, our new ring announcer," and then he found out me and I do YouTube and stuff. And their ring announcer also has a YouTube channel. And then he was like, "Man, wouldn't it be cool if we put the two of you together like in a tag team match, versus like, like him and one guy versus you and another guy, and it'll really be the other wrestlers doing most of the work, but you'll still get involved." And I was like, "I'm down," but I didn't even know that was an option. And he's like, "Oh yeah, well, we do this kind of training, this, that, and the other." It's like, well, okay, well, if we do it, let me do it right and be safe and everything too. So
yeah,
it started awesome. From that, whether that match actually happens or not. I was just like, I didn't even know I could do this. So I looked into wrestling school. This is another true story. Is after high school, I was like, well, I was working in retail and it was fine, but I was like, well, I want to do more than this. But I think we all did the backyard wrestling stuff back in the day. I know I sure did. So, so I did that, but I was like, man, I wonder if I could actually do this. Cause I'm 6'5", I'm currently, back then I was 6'5" and like 230, 240, pretty athletic. And I was like, I'm going to look into wrestling schools. My dad found out and he said, "Hey, instead of going to wrestling school and destroying your body, how about you go to the local trade school to get a career in something else?" Yeah. In a polite way. He was trying to help. I mean, and he was helpful. He's like, "You know what? I'll even help you get in there. I'll help you with your tuition, whatever you need." I was like, "Perfect." Like, okay, I'll take that. So I did that, got a job in radio, got married, had children, relocated a few times. And then fast forward 18 years later, when I was like, well, not the shoulda, coulda, woulda, but always been a wrestling fan and still appreciate it and all that too. And then I started going to the local shows and I was like, wait a minute. And I even go to the local wrestling shows. And these guys are athletes and everything, but they're just kind of, they're local wrestlers. They're like the local indie guys. And, with the exception of a few of them, some of them, I'm just like, looking at them. I was like, I'm bigger than that guy. Wait a minute. Let's go. So I started getting that bug in my head where it's just like, hold on now. And then when he mentioned that, I was just like, I didn't. And he's like, oh yeah, we've trained people as young as 16 and as old as, we've had people come in through in their 60s and 70s. Anybody can. It's just, it depends on, I'm not expecting to get signed by, any major promotion, but just for fun, just
good luck, John. No, for fun.
Awesome.
Well, yeah,
that's awesome.
Whether you're performing in front of 50 people or WrestleMania.
Well, the Spokane one does well. I mean, they get usually like 250, 300 people in, but
that's awesome
as far as the audience goes. But I mean, and then even more than that too, where it's like, okay, well, I can do that now. But even if the wrestling part of it doesn't come to full fruition, I could be a referee, I could be a manager, I could be a ring announcer because I'm a voice. I've been a radio DJ for the last 30 years or 20 years. I could do play-by-play. I used to do play-by-play of all things. I used to do announcing and play-by-play for a local sumo wrestling federation in Idaho of all places. So
in Idaho, wow.
Yeah, there was enough people in Idaho, enough people who just kind of got their friends together to start a sumo federation, and that's always how it starts, just like with video game conventions. You get enough people together to start a trade night, and then it just grows and grows and grows.
That's true.
So there was enough people in Idaho where I lived to have a nice sumo, and I love sumo wrestling too. So have a nice following, and they needed somebody who could do announcements. And I was like, well, I'm on the air, so I have no problem talking to people. So I'll be honest, I volunteered. I didn't get paid for it. I was just like, I'll do it for free. This is fun for me. I get the best seat in the house, so
that's very true. So is that your job outside? And I usually don't ask people that question, but you touched on it. So I feel like it's fair game.
Oh yeah. It's no secret. Yeah. It's no secret. I've been a radio DJ for the last 22 years. I'm on the air. So much of radio, so much of all media is multimedia now. So radio, absolutely. Television, newspaper, it's all online social media stuff. So I'm a local broadcast journalist, just like Bobby Heenan. I'm a broadcast journalist.
There you go.
But I'm also on the air. So I write articles and I talk about them.
Very good. Yeah, I think all that'll dovetail very nicely with jumping into the ring. So yeah, I wish you the best with that. That's so cool.
Yeah. I'm still baby in training. So I'm still learning bumps and running the ropes and having different people teach me how to run the ropes. I'll try it this way, try it that way, and then the bruising of the ribs is very real. Oh yeah. So, but
that's what I've heard. Yeah.
It's super fun. And even just things like, setting up and tearing down the ring has been, it's like, okay, I mean, not just like, oh, here's what an actual wrestling ring looks like and feels like and whatever, but just like there's no spring underneath. It's nothing like that.
And that's the biggest misconception, I think.
Yeah, it's not a trampoline. It's planks of wood, and but it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. So I'm having a blast doing it. And everyone, the other wrestlers who are there, who have been going already through the what's happening there in this Spokane thing. It's fairly new. That what he just recently started taking on students. Maybe been going on for a year, maybe a little over a year. But yeah, they've all been super, super, super supportive. And no, I live out of town, so I don't get to train as much as they do, like in person or anything. But,
right? Yeah, you said about 3 hours to.
Yeah, it's a 3-hour drive, but it's in a town where we have family anyway. So we're in that town about once a month. So we usually plan our visits. Yeah, around the same time as the wrestling show, so we're able to go there and help out, and just be a part of the audience. But then again, help set up and tear down the ring and all that too. So set up chairs, just however we can help.
Very cool.
Very cool. Yeah, that's awesome. Well, since we talked about wrestling here, and we always seem to bring it back to that, let me get your Mount Rushmore wrestling, and then I'll let you go because I don't want to take up your entire evening here.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no worries. My Mount Rushmore of wrestling? Ooh.
So what's that, 4 or 5? How many are on the Mount Rushmore?
There's 4. But thank you for, I'm not attacking either of you, but I really believe the both of you, perhaps the fans can get my back. You go for obscure answers. Gauntlet Legends. Ice cream. Yeah,
well, I just have this natural drive to go against the grain and to like the stuff like that. That isn't the typical answer. I don't know. That's just my
Mount Rushmore, John. Go.
If I have to go by, well, are we talking about my personal favorite wrestlers of all time, or just the best of all time? It's hard to say.
I guess you could give us both of you. Yeah.
You have to. Yeah, I think you have to mix it up.
Yeah.
Right. You have to mix it up. All right. Well, my go-to answer, and I know people have experiences one way or another when they meet them in real life, but my favorite.
I'm gonna have another question now too. So. Just get ready for that one. I'm gonna have another question after this now too. I have another one.
No worries. I know. I'm stalling for time. Growing up, my favorite wrestler was Bam Bam Bigelow.
Awesome. So I think that is an awesome one.
I have to have Bam Bam Bigelow on the list just because he was a big dude but knew how to move.
Absolutely, yeah.
I was such a big fan of Jake the Snake Roberts because again, he didn't have like the Hulk Hogan physique. But and he didn't yell and scream. He wasn't like Ultimate Warrior, like yelling in the microphone, spitting everywhere. Just his promos of just like him, like he was speaking directly to me through the camera. It's like
absolutely,
like, it was creepy, but I just thought he was great. He just had a cool look to him and a cool it was cool.
And the best DDT ever, hands down.
Oh my god, yeah, with the snap and everything. Oh god, and I only have 2 left. That's the problem.
Always the issue.
I know, because it's like as much as I love of course I love The Rock, of course I love Steve Austin, and there was always arguments to put Randy Savage on there for everything he's done too, but I don't know. I'm trying to think of like
it gets tough.
Do I put like I know that's I mean I could just say some answers just to get it over with, but I always think of guys like man, I don't even know where to begin. Well, I mean if we're talking anywhere, I'm gonna put Kenta Kobashi on there from All Japan Pro Wrestling.
Okay.
He's one of my favorites. He's a Japanese guy. And I got to put Jushin Thunder Liger up there too. So
Jushin Thunder Liger is an awesome one.
There you go.
Yeah. I got to see him wrestle. I think it was his last year against Jeff Hardy, and it was incredible.
Yeah.
That's a good one. So Joe, you gave me a hard time about obscure names. I mean, there's some obscure names there too.
I know.
You're
both.
I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, Joe, give me yours because
Andre, Flair, Hogan, Austin. That's it. That's and John's old enough. He's old enough to appreciate Andre.
You can't argue that list.
You can't. No.
You can't.
No.
Andre. I mean, Andre was a spectacle. He was a household name for people who didn't even watch wrestling, and that's it's
the first to really transcend. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he was a global.
He was enormous, Chase. He was Rock times 10. He had interests outside of wrestling, and Chase and I talk about the buckets because that's hard. Who's the greatest wrestler of all time? And I like to say the bucket is the champion, right? And in that bucket is your Ric Flair, your Bruno Sammartino. The second is the technician, So then obviously Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, etc.,
Sure.
Kurt Angle, and then
Yep.
Superstar. And that's, people that they say can't wrestle, quote unquote. But Andre goes in there, Austin. He was a good
Yep.
wrestler, but by the time he got his run, he already had 200,000 miles on him.
Right.
Hogan, Goldberg, etc.
Right. Yeah. Well, they knew how to respond to the audience, and as much as people give Hulk Hogan crap for one reason or another,
It's
he knew
ridiculous.
how to read the audience better
Yeah.
than anyone.
He was
Like he knew how to change direction.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And not everyone can do that. Not everyone. I mean, yeah, but yeah, it's you can't. It's a list you can't argue because there's no room to argue with it.
It's on
So,
point for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would say to mix it up a little from that, I would say Hogan, Flair, Macho Man. Oh man, Austin and Taker, I feel like are neck and neck. So
Yeah.
I know
thought-
I laid
thought
down
about it
5,
too,
but
for sure.
yeah, I don't know. I
Yeah.
guess I'll go Austin over Taker. But, that doesn't sound right to even say.
Yes, it does, Chase. Good pick. Good pick.
You know, actually, I do have to change my list though because I should have said Riggs from Raven's Flock, Scotty Riggs, one half of the American Males, and then just Riggs in there 2 more times. I guess I don't know.
You're
Well,
winding
you
me
know
up.
what? That's okay. That's all right because
Okay, we'll figure that out.
I like Scotty Riggs. I like Scotty Riggs, and
Yeah.
I just
I mean, I
we
like
just
him back
watched
then,
he jumped into Memphis Wrestling the other day too, and
Yeah, I heard about that. I started doing
Yeah. Mm.
good things with the DDPY and all that, and
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
glad to see him back. I mean, we follow each other on Twitter. I think this. Well, I mean, you got to understand how devastated I was when I found out his last name wasn't actually Riggs. I was like, oh, come on, you lied to me. But I still liked it because, oh, cool, because it's not the most common last name in the world. It's not super rare, but not a whole lot of Riggses just popping up in media outside of
Lethal Weapon. There you go.
I get a lot of Lethal Weapon.
Yep.
Oh yeah, but yeah. So yeah. It
Hey,
worked
they're
out.
supposed to do a Lethal Weapon 5 though, and
there you go.
Riggs is supposed to be directing it, right? Mel Gibson's gonna.
No, I believe it. Got to do something.
Yeah, I
I'll take
feel
it.
like I don't know how I feel about that, but I don't know. Sometimes that nostalgia, it's like the new Indiana Jones. Like so many people hate on it, but it's another chance at seeing Harrison Ford.
Harrison put the hat on. Yep.
Yeah, put the hat
Yeah.
on, and it's the same thing with Mel
I-
and Danny
I-
with Lethal Weapon.
I really loved the last Indiana Jones film that came out.
Same.
Though. Like I unironically liked it a lot. So
Yeah.
as long as you can
I
keep doing
really
it,
did too. There was just so many different elements to it, and I actually went to the theaters and saw that twice because there's so much to
nice.
unpack in that film.
Yeah.
And I say that actually with the one prior to that as well, which gets the most hate out of anything in the entire franchise. But there's a lot going on in that as well too. That I think if you just see it once, you don't really appreciate it. Even though I can certainly say it is the worst of the franchise, but it's
Right.
it still does have some good stuff in
Yeah.
there, I think.
Well, even the
So,
original trilogy is great for their own reason. Everyone's going to I would just like the original trilogy, the Star Wars trilogy. There's always going to be the people who really love one and hate the other. There's the people who hate
Yeah.
the one but love the other. And you say the same thing for the Castlevania trilogy too. It's like, I mean, I love Simon's Quest, but it's like the first Castlevania. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when there was only one Castlevania and it was called Castlevania.
Yep.
Or versus Castlevania in the arcade. But I loved Simon's Quest, and then Castlevania 3 is legendary. But there's a lot of people who just hate. They hate Castlevania 2, probably because they saw Angry Video Game Nerd talk about it before they actually played it themselves.
Yeah, no,
that
you're
may be
right,
something
James.
there,
You hit the nail on the head, John.
yeah, it's like, no, it's such a good game. I mean, that's
And I
that
love
game
James.
is the reason
Too. I don't know him
Metroidvania
personally,
is.
but
Yeah.
he's a great guy.
He is, yeah, he really
you can
is.
see he's a good soul.
Yeah, I know. He's. I've told that to other people too, where it's just like, he is not his character. He plays a character on screen,
Yes.
but when you see him in real life, he's the most humble dude you'll ever meet.
Oh God, so down to earth. Especially those beginning segments with the cursing and the yelling and the violence and
Right.
the rolling rock. That was all baloney. So
Right.
yeah, that's not him. That's not James.
Nah, he's good.
well, that kind of leads me to my other question. I've seen you interview some famous people on your channel, so
Sure.
you've undoubtedly been able to interview some pretty cool people. Who are some of the coolest people you've gotten a chance? And it doesn't necessarily have to just be on screen on your channel. Who are
Sure.
some of the coolest people you've had the opportunity to meet and get to know in some capacity at least?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, and again, I come from a radio background where I've interviewed many.
Mhm.
I still say goes down in history. It was it was early in my radio career. But my favorite radio interview of all time was with RuPaul. And I don't even remember. I don't remember what we talked about, but man, we had the best time ever, and we were just both
That's
laughing
awesome.
and both
Very cool.
giggling. I think he literally. And this was with the radio station, and I think he literally called in. So I didn't meet him in person, but I think he called in to promote. It may have been Drag Race season 1 or something. I know RuPaul was doing something RuPaul, but he called in the radio station to promote whatever thing he was promoting.
Sure.
But he was such a great interview. Yeah, but I mean, I'm trying to think of who I interviewed recently. I mean, Bam Margera was.
That's one that I watched. What was that? That was a little while ago now.
It was late last year. I mean, it was at a really
year.
rad weekend in Florida, and he was fun just because I was such a fan of. And I went into it kind of hearing the stories of like where he was before, what was going on at other conventions before. He was
you had hit him at a weird time too, where he had been going through some stuff. And, there was a lot going on in his life at that time too. But it was funny watching that. I think it was right around the time that he had made some headlines, and it was cool to see him on your channel.
Yeah.
And to just see you guys naturally kind of interact, and seemed like he was in a great place there too. So
he was in a great place, great mood. He knows his retro gaming stuff like that too. So
for sure.
It was fun to, because you never know. It's always the like, hey, do you play video games too? I mean, the answer is probably yes, but no, I don't know. I mean, going back to wrestling, Xavier Woods, Austin. Xavier Woods. He's he is exactly as you'd think he would be. Just nice and happy to be there, and again, loves video games as a complete dream.
Huge. Sure.
I don't know. I'm trying to think of like other any other band or something. I mean, fortunately, most part, everyone I've spoke to, either in person or even over the phone for like a radio interview, they've always been really cool. I mean, Gabriel Iglesias, the comedian, Fluffy.
Yeah.
Also exactly as you would think, super nice, just like naturally funny. Like even when he's not on, just like before we would go on before we would go live on the air, it was the same either way. So, and you've seen that, and I'll see that a couple of times. Yeah, I love to see that too. So yeah, fortunately for the most part, everyone's been super, super cool.
That's
awesome.
I
mean, they're all people at the end of the day, and you learn that really quickly. That's one of the first things I learned in radio was, when you're like hanging out with band, not that you're hanging out with band members, but you're just there too, and they're there too, and they're just sitting there playing cards or looking at their phone or whatever. They're people at the end of the day, and you don't have to treat them like anything else.
One leg at a time, like us, John.
Yeah, that's it, man.
Yeah, it's cool what your line of work in general, but also what YouTube can kind of the perks of it, get you in front of some really cool people sometimes. So yeah, it's awesome to have those experiences with people where they turn out to be, they say never meet your idols or whatever, right. But it's always great when you do, and everything kind of pans out, because there's nothing worse than looking up to somebody and then finding out that they're a complete asshole. So
yeah. I know there have been people who have asked, like I'll bring my wife to conventions sometimes, and they'll like people will talk to her like at my table or whatever, and I'm talking to someone else, and they'll say, oh hey, must be cool, like living with John or being whatever, and she's just like, I see the back of his head editing videos all the time.
Yeah, the life of a content creator. That's the majority of the time. Yeah,
he's either filming, so I can't go in because I'm literally in my kitchen. If I spun my camera around, you'd see my fridge and my microwave and stuff. And I think I did the dishes, but I still have a bunch of garbage.
I'm with you, John. I'm in the bedroom, so it's all sleight of hand and smoke and mirrors.
Yeah, it's all. Trust me, it's all smoke and mirrors for sure.
Yeah, well, that's how it goes. But
right.
All right, man. Well, I so appreciate you taking the time to spend with us tonight. I know you're a busy guy, and I'm sure you've got a million videos to film and edit tonight. So I'll let you go. But thank you so much again. It was a blast. Being able to chat with you tonight.
Yeah, so. It was cool hanging out here, and we'll have to do it again sometime.
Please. Yeah, absolutely. And for everybody, make sure that you click the pinned comment all the way up at the top where I put a direct link over to his channel. You won't regret it. He's got some amazing stuff going on.
That's the unsubscribe button right there. So you want to click that twice if you can. Make sure you got it the first time anyway.
Well, thank you so much. I'll let you go, John. Thank you again.
Thank you, John.
Really appreciate it. It was a blast.
All right, cool. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Always a pleasure.
All right. You take care.
Nice guy.
All right, guys. Well, yeah, awesome. Just a pleasure. So, all right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. I, again, appreciate you guys joining us here. We will be back tomorrow, actually, with RVD on we're doing 5 p.m. tomorrow, right? We're going to be coming in 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So if you're on the West Coast, which is, I believe, is where RVD is. It's going to be 2 p.m. So yeah, all right, guys. Be sure to jump over to that video tomorrow at 5, or anytime after. Obviously, there's no rush; it's not going anywhere. So thank you guys so much for the support on here. We'll see you guys tomorrow.